Bienvenidos, welcome. Senator, the Honourable Dr. Amery Browne, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, Ambassador Barria from Chile, Ambassadors, Charges d'Affaires, colleagues of the Diplomatic Corps, Mrs. Marina Salandy-Brown, Mr. Josué de la Maza, ladies and gentlemen, please remain following all COVID protocols. Please wear your masks on, sanitize, and respect social distance. We will hear now a safety instructions tape by NALIS, followed by the national anthem of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Welcome to the audio-visual room of the National Library of Trinidad and Tobago. Please pay attention to the following safety briefing. In the event of an emergency, or at the sound of the alarm, kindly proceed in an orderly fashion to the exits. The audio-visual room has 3 exits. 2 are located at the back of the room, 1 on the right, and 1 on the left. The 3rd exit is located at the front of the room, at your left. Take a moment to locate the exits. Once out of the audio-visual room, kindly proceed up the stairs out of the building to our muster point situated at Woodford Square. Please note, you are not allowed to re-enter the building unless given clearance to do so by security personnel. Thank you. Do enjoy the program.
We will listen now to the national anthem of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. I will give the floor now to Ms. Paula Green, NALIS Executive Director, for her opening remarks.
Senator, Dr. the Honourable Amery Browne, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Your Excellencies and other members of the Diplomatic Corps, Mrs. Marina Salandy-Brown, Founder and President of the Bocas Fest, Mr. Josué de la Maza, NESTLE'S Market Head for the Anglo-Dutch Caribbean region, members of the board, management, and staff of NALIS, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, good morning. I warmly welcome you to the National Library of Trinidad and Tobago, and today's conversation on the topic, the use of Spanish in trade and cultural relations between Trinidad and Tobago and the Iberoamerica. Today's event is an initiative of the Ambassadors of Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Mexico, Panama, Peru, Spain, and Venezuela, and is being held in collaboration with NALIS. NALIS welcomes the opportunity to commemorate International Spanish Language Day, which is observed annually on April 23rd, and marks the death of Miguel de Cervantes, author of the masterpiece of Spanish literature, Don Quixote. This is the second occasion on which the authority has been privileged to co-host an event in recognition of Spanish Language Day, the first being in 2018, where there were all-day screenings of Spanish language films and a readathon. I trust that many more Spanish language day celebrations will be organized, as NALIS is a proponent for the use of Spanish as Trinidad and Tobago's first foreign language. NALIS's focus on the integration of Spanish language in our day-to-day lives is evidenced by the establishment of a Spanish language collection made possible through the kind donations of embassy partners, the collaboration with the Latin American Diplomatic Corps, Spain, and the Ministry of Education to host Club de Español, a Spanish language conversation club, and the staging of Latin Nights, a week-long festival which features Latin art, culture, and cuisine. Now that in-person activities have resumed, you can expect to see the physical regathering of Spanish language enthusiasts and the restaging of Latin Nights and other related activities. Ladies and gentlemen, given Trinidad and Tobago's geographic proximity to Latin America, making this country the ideal location for growing trade and cultural exchanges with our neighbors in the north and south, today's conversation to mark International Spanish Language Day is indeed timely, because it is said that great things happen when there is a gathering of great minds. Accordingly, I am certain that we are all looking forward to today's discourse and the insight our panelists will bring on the various relevant issues pertaining to the use of Spanish in trade and cultural relations. I therefore invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's proceeding. And I also thank you all for joining us today at the National Library of Trinidad and Tobago. Have a wonderful day.
Dr. Amery Browne is Trinidad and Tobago's Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs since 2020 and a former ambassador to Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, and Paraguay. Former Minister of Social Development and former two-term parliamentary representative, with over 15 years of experience in leadership, team management, and governance at the national and regional levels, as well as within the public service and in non-governmental organizations in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. He was educated at Queen's Royal College and graduated as MBBS at the University of West Indies in 1997. Mrs. Marina Salandy-Brown is the president and founder of the Bocas Lit Fest, which produces one of the world's top 20 annual literary festivals, Trinidad and Tobago's NGC Bocas Lit Fest. She is a multi-prize winning broadcast journalist and a former executive of the BBC in London. Her weekly columns appear in Newsday, and her other writing has appeared internationally. A former trustee and member of various arts organizations in the United Kingdom, she remains a Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts and holds honorary doctorates from the University of the West Indies. She received a 50th Anniversary Independence Award from Trinidad and Tobago for her contribution to the arts, and in 2020, she was made an honorary Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature in the United Kingdom, and the Republic of Chile awarded her the inaugural Ferdinand Magellan Award for Innovation and Cross-Cultural Exchange. Marina was born and educated in Trinidad and at universities in Britain, Egypt, and Mexico. She is widely traveled and has lived in the UK, Spain, and Japan. Mr. Josué de la Maza is the head of market for the Nestlé Anglo-Dutch Caribbean since September 2021. This is his latest step in his 27-year international career to date, which has seen him drive business's performance in senior commercial roles, including the head of sales of Mexico, of Brazil, and of the global head of sales based in Switzerland. He has also worked managing strategic businesses in the Nestlé market, including the dairy business unit in Mexico and nutrition in Brazil. Please allow me also to excuse Mr. Nicholas Lockjack, who wanted to come today, but finally couldn't make it. Now I will give the floor to Mrs. Marina Salandy-Brown, who will lead the conversation.
Thank you very much. Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. Let me start by thanking the Spanish and Latin American embassies and their excellencies, the ambassadors and deputy ambassadors, for inviting me to sit and have a morning conversation, gentlemen, on the subject of relations, trade and cultural relations between Trinidad and Tobago and, by extension, the CARICOM area and Iberoamerica, a huge continent to our south and to our west. And I'm particularly happy to be able to do that because it's fantastic to be celebrating Spanish, which is a language that I love, and the Spanish Language Day, International Spanish Language Day, and not least too because of the very close proximity of Trinidad and Tobago to the Spanish-speaking world and our Spanish-speaking neighbors. In fact, I don't know how many of you have flown across, depends on where you're going, but if you were to fly across the Bocas del Dragon, which is that waterway between Trinidad and Venezuela, many of you've been down the islands, well, it's sort of up there, and if you just blinked for 1 minute, you would not know that you'd left Trinidadian space and was flying over Venezuela. We're so very, very close. But yet, I think many of us would agree that there isn't a lot of there doesn't seem to be a lot of palpable interest in what goes on that vast continent, rich with all sorts of wonderful things. And it's a very complex reason why that is so, and we don't have very much time. Our time is finite. So I thought it would be quite nice if we just had a conversation about the things that are most relevant, that are represented in our areas of work and interest. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation, and at the end of it there will be a microphone, and we'd love you to join in and make comments and ask any questions, of course. But let me start, gentlemen, welcome. I'm very honored to be with you. You'll be using our microphones all the time because we're going to have a conversation. Yeah. Maybe we ought to start with you, Minister, because let's talk a little bit about language, because it seems to me that language without communication, there's no negotiation. And your job is mainly about negotiating to make sure that our Trinidad and Tobago's interests are furthered and advanced on the international stage, but in particular in relation to Spanish in this area. I think we should start talking a little bit about whether you think, and of course you as well, Josué, whether you think that language is a barrier or whether language is an opportunity. Maybe we should start there.
Okay, thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be seated with both of you and with this very distinguished audience this morning. I particularly want to recognize the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, Ambassador of Chile, and the heads of mission, ambassadors of so many beautiful countries that are represented here in Port of Spain. I recognize so many, I'm not going to name each one, and I believe I'm seeing Germany in the room as well, which is very, very refreshing. And one Spanish-speaking country is also here that is sometimes not acknowledged as a Spanish-speaking country, and that's the United States of America. Where are you, USA? But I say it lightheartedly, but the reality is that we're living in an ever-changing world. In this world, language is critical. Spanish sometimes is underestimated, in my opinion, within Trinidad and Tobago, but circumstances have forced us all to open our eyes, open our ears, and open our hearts to the reality of our geographic location and our location in history as well. Today I'm wearing a pin from an organization called CELAC. And the reason I selected that pin is because it really demonstrates that Central and South America are almost reaching out to embrace the Caribbean physically. But an embrace is only valuable when it is returned. It takes two. And therefore, it is incumbent on us, the nationals of Trinidad and Tobago, to be sure that we are returning that embrace. I thank Marina for her opening comments, because a lot of us do not recognize exactly how close we are to Venezuela. And I had a similar experience very recently when on a flight returning from Central America, the route took us over the Grand Bocas. And literally the proximity was so striking. And then I went with my family to Los Iros in South Trinidad. And you just have to look. You don't have to even look to the horizon. Venezuela is just in your proximity, very, very close. And therefore, I would not agree that there have not been exchanges. There have been many, many exchanges. There are so many villages in our country in which you would find young people, adults, and children with Spanish surnames. And that's not by accident. And when you go to coastal towns in South America as well, you would find many Trini-sounding surnames. That's not an accident either. So there have been many, many connections. But this takes us right back to our history, our pre-independence history, and the fact that our geography, the geography of our island, is very much marked by the Spanish language. And so many of our towns or districts are named after Spanish authorities, after Spanish locations. And then you just have to listen to our music. Even soca, and I've spoken to many people about this, there are elements, there are rhythms that are easily identified as cross-cultural. And then we have parang, which most of us, many of us, do not understand, even some of our best parang singers. But I think that's where there's a little bit of a paradox. There's more, there's greater potential that awaits us. And I would just want to end this just initial exchange by sharing the words of Nelson Mandela, who said that if you want to reach the mind of someone, you speak to them in a language that they understand. But to touch the heart, you have to speak to them in their language. And I think that's a lesson for all of us here on this wonderful occasion in embracing the Spanish language, celebrating the Spanish language and its value and potential to Trinidad and Tobago. So thank you very much, and looking forward to our conversation.
I don't know how long you've been here in Trinidad, maybe a few months, but everything Minister Brown says is absolutely true. And of course, what is also true is that we have Caribbean people living all around the Caribbean basin. I know that in Mexico, in Veracruz, and in Limon, in Costa Rica, and you name it, they're there. In fact, there's a very famous song written by one of our best calypsonians called Bahia Girl, about the similarities between us and the people from that part of Brazil. So there's quite a lot. There's a lot going on there. But the other thing just picking up a little bit on that point about speaking Spanish, when I lived in Mexico, the statistics were incredible. It was something like 40-something% of Mexicans did not speak Spanish as their first language. Of course, it was a while ago, and I'm sure that has changed. But to what extent do you both think that we don't, because like you say, Dr. Brown, it's just something that's in our ambit, that, it's cultural, we enjoy the music, we eat the food, that we don't pay enough attention to language and what it actually can do? I mean, you speak many languages, so what do you think about that? You speak French as well, I imagine.
I do. First, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor. Senator Marie, and distinguished members of the diplomatic community. So, look, I would echo the Senator's comments in the sense that a language allows you to connect. I always tell my team that we are in the business of communication. Communication is actually what makes us unique, what makes us human. And the way we communicate with others, the way we engage and we connect, basically makes all the difference in every sense, in the business world and across countries, societies, and across our interactions. So I believe being able to speak the language and to connect with somebody's language can actually allow you to structure a very effective communication that can lead to effectiveness, efficiencies, and good business results. As Nestle, we operate in 186 countries worldwide. So we are all over the place, all over the place. And Nestle, we kind of think of ourselves not as global, but as local. Because everywhere we operate, we try to be with roots in the ground and being part of that particular society and adding value to the culture. It's amazing. You talk to people here in Trinidad and Tobago, and they will swear that Maggie is Trini. And then you go to Jamaica, and the Jamaicans will say, no, Maggie is Jamaican, man. So, I would say that's the beauty of what we try to do. We try to connect from within. And years ago, decades ago, some of the international, the expats that went to different countries, back in the day, there wasn't the communication that you would have. They would go for months. And they would be there, and they would connect, and they would create families and grow there. And then they would go to another place, a little bit like changing. I sometimes say we kind of live like gypsies, and we move from one place to the other. And the real connection you get where you operate, the roots, the building, it's actually through language. So I do believe that it's extremely important to make a legitimate effort to learn the language, to learn the ways, to embrace the culture, and in that way connect and be effective.
But language is not something that people just do. It comes from your heart, it comes from your history, it comes from your pocket. And I think that, as you were saying, I think that we have a huge advantage in Trinidad, particularly. In Trinidad, in Puerto de España, you know, so many of us have Spanish names. We don't actually speak Spanish. I have 3 young cousins whose father is from Paraguay, and they all call Tomás, Sita, and whatever, you know, Spanish name, Perez, and not a single one of them speaks any Spanish. I said, you're inauthentic. You should learn Spanish. But there's no reason. So how do we make people understand the need to do this? Because if we don't have good reason for them to do it, they won't do it. Is this point, Dr. Browne, to the point that we should really be having more exchanges in terms of trade, in terms of education, in terms of opportunities? Because what Nestle does is Nestle creates a local family. But we're not doing that, perhaps, or maybe I'm being unfair, but what do you think are the possibilities and what are the hindrances to that?
Okay, well, I think the potential is enormous. And the imperative is also enormous at this time. There's so many references to diversification and to the importance of Trinidad and Tobago moving away from its dependence on energy products. But even with respect to energy products, because we're still there to some extent, the Latin American region has represented a very important market for us. There are already connections that we have made. And with regard to our manufacturing sector, there have been a number of inroads. And it's really a bridge. As we've said, language is a bridge. And when a bridge is effective, It allows for movement in both directions. So those connections are already there. Many of our manufacturers already have some footprint in the Spanish-speaking world. It's really a case of expanding the traffic in both directions. We have a positive balance of trade, a favorable balance of trade with almost every country represented in this room. And that might be something that some would be proud of, but the volume can be increased and has to be increased when you look at the horizon for Trinidad and Tobago. You referenced something very important, and which is that, and it's not just limited to Spanish, but foreign languages in general. I have found, certainly, a few short years ago when I was in the secondary school system, you would find a particular cohort of individual or student who might be inclined towards languages, and maybe there's been insufficient emphasis on the value of foreign languages, certainly the value of Spanish, to all of our students, to our entire population. I came out of a science stream, and I have to confess that the temptation was strong, and I yielded to that temptation to say, well, languages are not as important as chemistry and biology, etc., and then I went into medicine. But guess what? The very first overseas course in epidemiology that I attended was in Mexico. And I was pressed into to resuscitate the Spanish that I had. And we're seeing that more and more now. The third most used language on the internet right now is Spanish. It cannot be escaped. It cannot be evaded. So if we maintain our posture that English is the be-all and end-all of our present and future, we are denying ourselves tremendous opportunity. And that applies to the individual. If there's any young person in this room here today, that applies at the individual level, it applies at the organizational level, and also at the national level. So really, it is a case that the opportunities are there and they have to be seized upon. Fortunately, there are many resources that are available, some of which are already deployed, that can help us to get to that next level. Many of the diplomatic missions present here have initiatives and have been working with our national entities, with the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, to expand Spanish language familiarity and training, both for our own diplomats, which is essential, and I've been pressing very hard within our walls on that, but also for other elements of our public service and for our private sector and the wider society. So I think there's really no excuse. And a day like today, an event like the 23rd of April, and the celebration of Spanish as an international language can help us to elevate awareness and elevate the value that we all hold for this key to our future.
I was speaking to a couple of businessmen who said that even though they want to get their goods into Latin America, that it's really very difficult to get into those markets. Language is possibly a problem, but of course, economies of scale. We're a small island. There's a mismatch between our levels of manufacturing. There's something sort of you might be able to talk to, that the standards of our manufacturing may not easily meet the standards in much bigger, more older, if you like, more established countries, who have been used to working much longer to certain standards, especially in regards to the bigger markets that they've had historically to work with. And that, these non-tariff barriers really do get in the way. Do you think that There are things, I don't think that government can fix everything. I don't think it's always, people always say the government, the government. But what about things like the chambers of commerce, universities? What roles do you think, and from your experience, do you think they could play in promoting Spanish as a language not of business, not just of something of salsa and, you know, all the things we love?
Thank you, Marina. Look, I believe first, yes, it's sometimes difficult to export to Latin America in great part because of critical mass, okay? For example, the ADC region that we cover as Nestle, it has an 8 million population, all right? Having said so, there are ways to specialize your production and add value with things that will be difficult to be found elsewhere. So for example, here we have a factory, and our factory here we produce liquid milk, we produce juices, okay? And we have some value-added juices that are, they're produced with very high quality, and no other factory in Latin America has those value-added juices. So we've been looking for opportunities to export to Central America. So I took a plane, I went to see my colleague in Panama, we had a nice discussion, and we started to agree on certain, let's start with small amounts, but we will be moving in that direction. The other thing is we are, I would say, good at moving merchandise across countries because of the way we are set up, and because we cover many different small island nations and countries. We end up importing from 25 places, but exporting to 22. So our people know how to move across all these different complexities in terms of just making it happen, which sometimes is difficult. The other thing that we have as a possibility to exploit opportunities is the fact that we have a lot of Caribbean nationals that are living today in the United States or in Canada. So you have a lot in Miami, you have people in New York, and the people, when they go away, they want to buy sometimes their own products. So we are producing here hot sauces, Maggi. They're very good, by the way. And we found those Maggi sauces in Miami, all right? So of course I said, well, this is great. But first I said, why? I'm not aware of this. What's happening? So in the end, it was not us bringing it. It was traders who saw the opportunity of bringing this kind of products into the United States, which actually means that there is an opportunity. It's what we call parallel trade. It's perfectly legal. It's all good. It's just not us doing it, but somebody's looking for that opportunity. So guess what? Yes, we will look into that as well into the future. So I believe that even small countries, if they find what to do and they specialize and they diversify and they choose something and they're good at it, they can make it happen. And then the economies of scales can come from doing business outside if you do a concerted effort. Now, chambers, of course they work. The moment you're sitting together with like business people and you start exploring opportunities and you choose 1, 2, or 3 angles, things begin to happen. Recently, the chamber here, the industry chamber, went to Guyana together. They went there, and they looked for opportunities, and I'm sure opportunities came from that. So that can be done not only with other Caribbean nations, but it can be done with LATAM, or it can be done with Dominican Republic. I was also recently with the ambassador of the Dominican Republic in Jamaica. We had a nice lunch. We were exploring opportunities. We have operations there and here. So to round it up, I believe that it's everybody's responsibility as stakeholders and parts of the economy of any place where we operate to look for these opportunities together to exploit it. And I think that, yes, we have a future in that sense, and we can make some of our Trini products, added value products, strong outside and take them to other countries.
Yes. agreed 100%. I thought you were going to say that the Maggie hot sauce was Trini, but it is. I was hoping. So the thing is, Marina, there are resources available. You're right, the Chambers of Commerce. We also have Export TT. There's also Caribbean Export, which I think we need to utilize a lot more as a mechanism to help open some of those doors. And then we already have success stories. And success is something that, if shared, isn't diminished in itself. And therefore, we have the Nestle's, we have the chief brand products, we have the Angosturas, and many of our other businesses that already have a footprint in the market, and I think really can be utilized more as exemplars and facilitators of further progress. So again, it's really a lesson in potential and taking advantage of that potential. But even with regard to tourism, again, sometimes when we think tourism, our focus has been too narrow in the past. And it's not all about the United States of America. It's not all about the United Kingdom, because there are so many citizens of countries much closer to us whose travel cost would be lower, and who have a curiosity for the Caribbean. But we have to have an environment that is hospitable. We have to have hospitality workers that would be able to communicate, to connect, to make people feel comfortable. And again, the current events are forcing us there with the influx of Venezuelan migrants and the fact, sometimes you open the newspaper and you see in the advertisement for a position at a shop, it's a Spanish language would be an asset. And that's a sign. So once that demand is there, the population is going to adjust, and people are adjusting. It's just that we'd like to see it happen more quickly, and that embrace shouldn't really be forced. It should be more natural to us. That's my anticipation.
It's my experience in growing up in Trinidad that there was a time when one felt that there was a very strong Spanish influence, because you would turn on the radio and you'd hear like 6, 7 Spanish stations, radio stations, beaming across from the continent to you. And so we've had waves of this before, and we've got the parang, and we've had many waves of Spanish influence here, but it hasn't sustained itself. So there's something really at the core of this, why it comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes, and it doesn't really develop enough. But I think I totally agree with you that, that it's becoming more compelling that we must do so. The organization that I run, the Bocas, this is called Boca, which is mouth, because it draws on our oral tradition. We have a very lively oral tradition. And so Bocas is a literary festival, and it's the largest in the Anglophone Caribbean. And we have tried, of course, we speak 5 languages in the region, which we forget. It's not just Spanish, we speak Portuguese and Dutch and French as well. And we've been going for 12 years, and we've tried, to develop the Spanish language within the festival. We used to run a film, as part of the festival, we used to run a film festival in this very room. And we did that for about 2 or 3 years, and that went extremely well. And it was interesting that I remember the Chilean ambassador holding a big event outside, which you probably will remember, Director, a huge event outside, and he showed a very famous film, Motorcycle Diaries, and the place was absolutely full. And then this whole library was full of food from all the different Latin American countries. And the place was teeming with life, and I think that sort of thing where you come at people through something that speaks to their heart and soul, is a very powerful thing. And it's in strict contrast to the way we are taught Spanish in school, for example. And I don't know how I imagine that you're teaching diplomats, and I'm sure you have to teach the people who work for Nestle. But the way we are taught Spanish in school is very transactional. The way we teach all our languages is transactional, that you have to do to get a certificate. Somebody was telling me yesterday that history is not being taught in schools very much here because it's difficult to get a grade A in that subject. Now, history is absolutely critical for us to understand the name of our country, the name of our capital city, why we have certain names, why we eat certain foods. So there's something really very basic in this. I actually think it's a problem. I think there's something really basic in all of this. I remember when I was studying history here in Trinidad, and we were talking about post-colonial, and this teacher made us read Tabaré, which is a long narrative poem about a Uruguayan hero. I don't know, it's a very long poem, probably well known to people in this room. And this person made the connection between, he says, oh, you're studying Spanish, you're reading Spanish, you should do that to understand this. And I think that sort of broad approach to doing everything, a bit like the Nestle model in trade, is what we needed. And I think the focus is maybe much too narrow. And I don't know what we could do about that. I do think it's an issue.
All right, I'll give you my opinion on this. I believe that we are storytellers. Human beings are storytellers. We tell stories all the time. We tell stories to ourselves, we tell stories to our people, we tell stories to our children. But I do a presentation in business and I tell a story. I have a context, and then I have main characters, supporting characters, I have drama. Believe me, we have a lot of drama. So we live our lives one story at a time. And I believe that in a way, language, education, and culture are about stories. And if we know how to engage with those stories, things will become fun, and they will become engaging, and they will just awaken the curiosity in people. And so I think education, if we do it in such a way that it's really engaging and opens the eyes of the student in terms of doors to new stories that could have happened years ago but could be happening today, that's what makes it beautiful. I love traveling, and when you travel and you lose yourself in the languages or the speaking of people and the living the everyday life, that for me is beautiful, because you peep into another type of humanity, and that's just amazing. So if you use that language as a key into it, I think it's great. So if we can work in that, and we get our teachers and we get our programs to tell those stories, to take it seriously, to be passionate about this, I think we can create a change in society, and I think it can lead to something. So I would agree with you, Marina.
Yeah.
I want to add my voice to agreeing. Just reflecting back again a few years when I was at the school level, it was, you know what unlocked that door for many of my peers? It was the ability to travel to the island of Margarita and actually be immersed in a Spanish-speaking environment. And as we come out of COVID, maybe there will be more opportunities for exchanges, people-to-people exchanges, young people to young people exchanges. But now you don't necessarily have to travel to be exposed to those stories, because music tells a story, film tells a story, literature tells a story. So it really is to make it enjoyable, and the exact opposite of the reality that you described, Marina, which is the accurate reality, where it feels like something that you're shackled to, the language learning, as opposed to something that's enjoyable, that's fun. And again, there's that sense that we're denying ourselves. If your world is limited to the English-speaking world, you are limiting your knowledge of yourself, humanity, and the globe. There's so much, and you mentioned the Motorcycle Diaries. Just the story of Simon Bolivar, and the fact that many of us, in focusing on particular cultures, would not have been exposed to what I find is maybe the most compelling story in the history of our hemisphere. We're cheating ourselves. And therefore we have to find ways to unlock those secrets within ourselves.
Is there an opportunity, I know you're a member of the government, so I don't want to be disrespectful, but do you think that our governments in general and our civil service could do better joining up the dots, so that if you need us to do more trade because you need education to be better and you need, can we not work together so that we're not, like you say, all in silos doing one thing at a time? We actually need, if you need more linguists, then maybe, the education system should be, should allow for that to happen more than producing the large number of lawyers, for example, we produce, or, you know what I mean, rather than, so you have a need that is not being met. You have a need, you have a need that's not being met. So I think that's one of the problems, because everybody identifies the problems, but how do we actually fix them? I totally agree with everything you say. You need help to be able to do what you do, and the teachers need help to be able to do what they do. So how do we make it joined up? I think your model is great. I mean, they've got a commercial model. They have a commercial imperative, and of course, it's not so easy for government. A government is a very difficult thing to manage. But one of the things I was thinking about was the way in which I saw when Mrs. Thatcher was Prime Minister in Britain. In her wisdom, she started differentiating between foreign students and British students. And she almost trebled the cost of education for foreign students. So of course all the Arab nations, and many people from Indonesia and the Pacific area, instead of coming to Britain and be influenced by, British soft power, they were all going to the United States instead. And that was I thought that was really not very sensible in the long run, because the power to influence people through culture and education is vast. You then come to it through trade, but I think that if you inculcate that very early on, that that is a good investment. I don't know what your opinion on that is. I mean, America, the United States of America, offers us many sporting opportunities. So many people get scholarships to go and study sports, for example, in the United States. I was wondering whether that sort of thing is a possibility, perhaps with South America, and if not sport per se, then other things like that actually get people working together, being together, that is not strictly transactional about negotiating trade, but about really getting to know one another.
Absolutely. Now, there is, within the Ministry of Education, there is a unit for the implementation of the Spanish language. I've had some conversations along these lines with my colleague, the Minister of Education. And Marina, you're right. It's sort of been an ebb and flow rhythm to the thing. And this is an area where we do need to put some more emphasis and some more resources. Another good node is the Center for Language Learning at the University of the West Indies. When I was in Brasilia, I actually brought resources from that unit into Brazil, because there are different types of tourism, and in my opinion, because of where we're located, and bearing in mind that there's so many persons in South America who, to learn English and to be immersed in English, travel to Australia, to New Zealand, to Ireland, etc., which is very expensive, when they can come here. And in doing so, there will be, again, that exchange, because we can learn from them, and
That's working well, is it?
they can. It is working, but again, it's not at the scale where I think we are as yet able to feel the benefit. So it's really a case of multiplying, expanding that. It can't just be with Brazil, but with other countries in the Southern Core, and really expanding those bridges. So there are some opportunities. There will always be the temptation to look at the last 2 years as years that have been lost to some extent, but I don't believe in using COVID-19 as an excuse. I believe in using it almost as an inspiration. So this is the new world, and let's make best use of it. And just on one other point, as I reflected on my years in Brazil, I remember, this is not directly connected to Spanish, but I had the opportunity, I think it was in Sao Paulo, to attend a concert of one of my favorite singers in the whole world, and that is Dionne Warwick. Now you say, well, what does that have to do with celebrating Spanish? But I remember during her concert, which she claimed would have been her last, I don't know, I need to check to see if she's done anymore. She was singing in English, and then she just paused and uttered a few phrases in Portuguese, and the crowd went absolutely crazy. So it's a message even for our singers and our performers, many of whom come to us for help in accessing venues and jurisdictions abroad. It's not just about targeting the English-speaking world, but going to Spain and going to Spanish-speaking countries. And in doing so, yes, you will be performing in your language, but if you carry that little diamond with you, the ability to speak and connect to their hearts, that gives you tremendous power. So I just wanted to share that little memory.
As we mentioned, I've been here only for a few months, okay? But some things have, I would say, positively surprised me. I believe that institutions like the University of West Indies, they're producing some very capable individuals, very strong in terms of education. The people that work in Nestle, I constantly try to talk to them. Now with this virtual world, we get together and I get groups of 8 to 10 people and we just chat. One thing that has really positively surprised me is the level of education that many of our young women and men have in Nestle. Very well prepared, with masters. I would also say that we are a small country, 1.4 million people, but you would be surprised at how many people from Nestle Trinidad and Tobago have moved to interesting positions in Central America, in the US, in Canada. Very proud to have that representation. For the size of our organization compared to the whole Nestle world, we have some that we're very well respected in terms of what we can achieve. Now, maybe if we were to focus on some things, I am absolutely certain that we can achieve this. I have Spanish speakers in TT, people that report to me that I was surprised that my sales lady, one day she started to speak back to me in Spanish with a perfect Dominican accent, say, wow, what happened here? So, and I have a lot that they start with the high school and then they go on. Now, what's critical is the individual has to have an interest. We have to open the pathway. So I am very happy to give missions, for example, of 6 to 8 months, both for my people to go and for other Spanish speakers to come here. I have some people helping me with some areas. And when I spoke to them, I said, but I don't speak English so well. I said, don't worry about it. In 3 months, you'll be at least communicating good enough. I mean, just for you to get things done. So I really believe that there is great potential if we put our minds to it and we give it the right priority for this to evolve in the right way.
I think that's a very positive point at which we should stop. It's very optimistic, and invite anyone who would like to make a comment or to add to the conversation. This is a big conversation, and we've only just scratched, a bit of the surface.
So I take very serious this meeting, because we are talking about the future of our region. We've been here for more than 3 months, years, so we more or less know what is missing. What is missing? And according to my point of view, what is missing right now for the Trinbagonians to take into consideration the Spanish is the possibility of integrating in another important industry, the industry of culture, especially music. Right now, even we are in the Caribbean basin, every country has built like the walls, and we are backwards. I mean, we are not cooperating to establish an organic cooperation in the musical industry. In Cuba, we have song and all the reggaeton and everything, and you guys here have soca and the rest. And then when you say, let's merge, imagine if we merge salsa, song, with soca, the public you are going to reach. Imagine that in the field of music, we say that in a song, you will find a bis in Spanish. Imagine if Savannah Grass would have a bis in Spanish. Imagine how many countries you will go to reach just like this. Because if you get Savannah Grass to Puerto Rico, imagine what's going to happen in the US. If you go to Savannah Grass to Havana, imagine what's going to happen in Miami or in Spain. So the easiest way I see is, apart from everything you've been explaining, which is real, I see that in the music industry, which is an important industry, as you know, we have a chance there. And then, imagine when you have covered the whole world with a new rhythm, with a new fine way to see the music, how many businesses it comes with this. Tourism, imagine that the whole year you will be having here concerts of every possible way. So I think it's easy. I think it's very easy, but because people is here. I mean, the artists are here, and they are willing to do this. But when you see, at the end, they stick to soca, in a way that perhaps could lead them to their market, but they are not taking into consideration the possibilities to reach the world. And that's why I think CELAC would have a culture integrated if we, and when I say, I'm saying it here because Trinidad is not another country. I'm saying it here because I know Trinidad has everything to go beyond the borders. In the Caribbean, there is nothing. Perhaps 2 or 3 countries, not more, that could challenge the leadership of the Trinidad. But at the end, you have one Trinidad which already did it, and did it in the best possible way. Cardi B. When you listen to I Like It Like That, which is a Puerto Rican song, she's speaking in Spanish and in English, you see the magic you have. So I am urging to go. In Cuba, we are ready.
And I suggest we add in the steel pan for good measure. Anybody else? Well, if there's nobody else who'd like to make a... Yes, there is, at the back.
Buenos dias, everyone. I'm Dr. Camille Cummings, and my background is research and sociology. And I see Spanish as having an important part in research because a dictum of mine is that Venezuela y Trinidad y Tobago somos vecinos. We have a large migrant population here, and coming to our society, they're also bringing their own context and social problems. How are we to assess their needs, and how are we to communicate with them in terms of studying them, in terms of developing good research design so that we can collect data? We need to speak their language, and we need to tailor our measurement instruments, our qualitative approaches in their language so we capture the data that we need. So I am really honored to be here among distinguished guests and other participants to talk about how relevant Spanish is. I love Spanish, but I also see it as a practical tool in going forward and getting the data that we need. So I wanted to add that. And there's so much I could say, but I do not want to take up time. But I'm always interested in researching the migrant population, researching people that come here, not just about social problems, but even in the literary context. There is a Spanish poet, Dr. Guillermo Molenares. I spoke with him recently, and we're actually talking about looking at literary works. So there is sociology of poetry, there's linguistics, and there's so many things you can bring together in interdisciplinary format using language. So thank you.
Buenas tardes a todos. I'm Leah Guyton, soy Leah Guyton de Trinitica International. And as the name of my company says, Trinitica, Trini being Trinidadian, and Tica is the way we call female Costa Ricans. And people always ask me why that name. That name is because I lived in Costa Rica where I did a master's in Estudios Latinoamericanos. And coming out of that master's, I wrote a paper on la cooperación cultural entre el Caribe, angloparlante, y América Central. And basically, in the paper, I started off stating that we have una conexión cultural y histórica. There is a cultural, historical connection, and this is unknown. And as Ms. Brown stated, we have a problem with history because even within our secondary school system in the history classes, our students do not know the connection between Costa Rica, Limon, and the Caribbean. They do not know the connection between Panama, Colon, and the Caribbean. And they also don't know the connection between Honduras, Belize, y Los Garifunas. Okay? So the connection starts there. And my contribution in terms of, Ms. Brown she asked a question, what can our business community, I think you were speaking about the chambers, do? I saw a model in Costa Rica when I lived there. My first assignment teaching English, I taught English to a group of students who came from deprived communities. But this program was sponsored by Monhe, right? Which is the corporate community. And in Costa Rica, you see a movement where it is both private and public sector working together to make Costa Rica bilingual. And we are not seeing it here in Trinidad. Yes, the government is trying, but where is the corporate? Where is the corporate companies saying, yes, having Spanish-speaking workers are important to us and we are going to invest in this. And we are not seeing that. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't worry, it's very short. Huh? Dear Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, dear colleagues of Diplomatic Corps, distinguished friends, panelists, esteemed authorities of NALIS, professionals of the media who accompany us this morning, Trinbagonian friends of the Spanish-speaking community, to all of you, thanks, gracias, for being with us on this special day in this important event in Port Spain. It's a memorable gathering because we are once again meeting after 2 years without public contacts. So, thanks to the birth of Cervantes, today we can talk and are able to return to the former and more traditional normalcy. And of course, thanks NALIS for allowing us to use this auditorium and installation. We must also give credit to our small Spanish-speaking diplomatic community for their friendly attitudes and collaborative spirits, and putting aside our difference and political approach and even personal preference for certain writers, artists, and poets. Gracias a nuestros diplomáticos y asistentes que han trabajado para que este evento sea un éxito. I want to acknowledge our excellent speakers, Josué de la Maza, who provide us the private company point of view, Nestlé, a leading and global corporation in the food industry, but with long roots in Trinidad and Tobago and in the Caribbean. As you mentioned, global and local company, regarding how relevant and efficient is working in a bilingual way, Spanish and English, in today's business. Our very good friend, Marina Salandy, by the way, congratulations for your excellent column published yesterday in the Newsday, for giving us good reason for doing trade, expanding our exchange of goods. But we have to keep in mind that Trinidad and Tobago is more than oil and gas. It's carnival, it's Angostura, and thank you for the publicity for the room, fishes, turtles, flamingos, walcots, Naples, Cyril, James, fantastic intellectual. I am reading The Black Jacobin for this reason I mentioned, and of course, Eric Williams. Steel Pan, Calypso, Soca, among others. In sum, a major knowledge between Trinidad and Tobago, its culture, history, beauty, geography, products and service, and all our Spanish-speaking countries demand an additional effort for learning our respective languages. My final words of gratitude are for the Honourable Senator, Minister Dr. Amery Browne, who from the very beginning said yes to attending in this conversation. He is a firm believer that Trinidad and Tobago must deepen its ties with Latin American and the Spanish-speaking world. Spanish language has to be the key, the bridge, to have a closer and richer relationship. With your leadership, dear Minister Browne, I am sure we will move forward. Through you, I would like to convey to Prime Minister Kate Rowley our appreciation for promoting the learning of Spanish as national public policy in the country. I would like to express my gratitude, our gratitude to Gian Piero Leoncini, representative of CAF, because this development bank is founding a program for teaching Spanish in Trinidad and Tobago. You will have to excuse me for getting carried away and speaking so low. But after 2 years of lockdown and only Zooms, I needed this. A toast to all of you for a better I have another paper, just in case. A toast to all of you for a better integration and understanding between our cultures and language. Gracias de corazón.